If you are fascinated by the grit and ingenuity of civilians navigating the chaos of World War II, this guide is for you. Before we dive into the strategies and real-world lessons, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment sharing your thoughts on urban survival tactics. You'll be joining a community of serious history buffs who value actionable insight over fluff. In the next few minutes, we'll explore how ordinary city dwellers turned their urban environments into arenas of survival, adapting to scarcity, danger, and uncertainty. By the end of this guide, you'll not only understand their methods, but also how to apply these lessons in practical ways, whether for historical research, reenactment, or serious preparedness study. When bombs rained on London, Dresden, or Tokyo, cities transformed into unpredictable landscapes. Streets that once held routine and commerce became zones of danger and opportunity. Civilians had to quickly learn to read their environment, spot weak structures, identify hidden shelters, and navigate debris-strewn neighborhoods without drawing attention. Urban survival during wartime was about much more than hiding. It required a complete mental shift. Every alleyway, abandoned shop, or underground cellar became a resource if approached strategically. Residents relied on improvisation. Basements became multifunctional shelters, offering protection from air raids while serving as storage for essential goods. Some families fortified stairwells with sandbags or furniture to create temporary safe zones. These adaptations weren't merely reactionary, they were calculated choices based on observation and necessity. In modern terms, understanding this urban logic can be applied to disaster preparedness in contemporary cities, teaching us how to evaluate our own environments for vulnerabilities and strengths. One of the defining features of urban survival in World War II was extreme scarcity. Food, water, fuel, and even basic hygiene products were limited, requiring creative solutions to sustain households. In London, civilians grew vegetables in bombed-out lots, recycled kitchen waste for compost, and shared supplies with neighbours. Canned goods became currency, and even seemingly small items like soap or candles were carefully preserved and rationed. For a modern enthusiast, replicating this mindset can provide, deep insight into historical survival strategies. Start by mapping local resources in your neighborhood. Identify hidden water sources, unused plots of land suitable for small-scale cultivation, and places to safely store essential items. The principle here is simple. Scarcity sharpens observation and forces innovation. When studying Second World War urban survival, note how constraints fueled remarkable ingenuity that ensured both safety and sustenance. And city infrastructure was both an asset and a hazard. During the Blitz, Londoners relied on underground tunnels and the tube stations as impromptu air raid shelters. Streets littered with rubble became difficult to traverse, and public transportation systems often ground to a halt. Understanding the layout of the city, the locations of structural weak points, and the routes that could be used for escape or resource collection became, absolutely critical. Applying this knowledge today, one can practice, mental mapping of urban environments, study maps of cities that experienced heavy wartime activity, noting where civilians found shelter and how they accessed essential resources. Even in peacetime, this approach can teach valuable skills for urban preparedness, from identifying low-risk areas during civil emergencies to planning evacuation routes with multiple contingencies. Isolation was, honestly, deadly in war-torn cities. Successful urban survival often depended on forming tight-knit communities where knowledge, labor, and resources were shared. In occupied European cities, residents formed informal networks to exchange food, warn each other about impending danger, or repair damaged homes. These networks allowed civilians to pool expertise from first aid skills to navigation of hazardous zones, and created an essential social safety net. You can study these social dynamics to understand resilience in extreme conditions. For example, you might organize small study groups or local workshops to simulate coordination under constrained conditions. Observing how Second World War urban communities distributed labor, managed scarce resources, and maintained morale offers lessons in collaboration that are really as relevant today as they were 80 years ago. A critical lesson from Second World War urban survival was selecting and fortifying shelter. Basements, cellars, and even partially damaged buildings could offer safety if carefully assessed. Civilians learned to reinforce doors with sandbags, identify weak points that could collapse under attack, and create small escape routes in case of sudden danger. Ventilation, water access, and proximity to food stores became deciding factors in whether a location could, in fact, sustain life under siege conditions. For enthusiasts or, modern urban survivalists, this translates into actionable steps. Inspect potential shelter spaces, consider concealment and accessibility, and plan for extended stays without external support. Incorporate redundancy, such as multiple exits or hidden supply caches, to mirror the meticulous planning that saved countless lives during the war. Urban survival was as much a mental challenge as a physical one. The constant threat, noise from bombardments, and uncertainty about the future demanded psychological resilience. Civilians relied on routines, meal times, nightly checks of shelters, and community watch systems to maintain a sense of control. These routines reduced panic, allowed efficient decision-making, and preserved both morale and social cohesion. You can study these strategies to understand the human dimension of survival, practice structured routines in simulated high-pressure scenarios, or analyze first-hand accounts of urban dwellers to extract practical lessons in maintaining focus, calm, and resourcefulness under prolonged stress. For modern historians, urban survival enthusiasts, or disaster preparedness practitioners, the value of Second World War city lessons is in their applicability. You can map your environment, build strategic reserves, practice discrete movement, and learn to maximize community networks. Study historical city layouts and surviving wartime diaries to see exactly how individuals overcame structural challenges, resource limitations, and psychological strain. By approaching this with the same analytical rigor as wartime planners, you gain not just knowledge, but actionable insight. The essence of Second World War urban survival lies in observation, adaptation, and ingenuity. Civilians who mastered these skills transformed their cities into structured zones of life-saving opportunity. Today, learning from their strategies enriches both historical understanding and practical preparedness. If this guide gave you new insight into Second World War urban survival and the ways city dwellers adapted under extreme conditions, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more in-depth historical survival content. Leave a comment with your thoughts on which strategies surprised you the most, and share this guide with others who are passionate about the lessons history teaches us about resilience in urban warfare.